pins or a dressage block as well, if somebody's wanted to do all three disciplines with it.
Careful with the bridle, gently.
So, let's just have a little look and pop that on it. So, what would everybody think to that? Tell me your thoughts. Yep, 2 narrow. What else? Sorry?
The cantel's higher.
Yeah, canter's high, so it's 2 narrow for the horse. Do you know what to look for to see if the saddle is too narrow for a horse? We don't tend to teach 4 fingers anymore. As SMS anyway. As long as you have sufficient clearance, which is this, then that is enough. What we want to do is get you as close to the horse as we possibly can without interfering with the horse. You know, where the 4 fingers came from, you know, why do you need 4 fingers? All you need to do is have a complete clearance, okay? We've identified from a distance that we think this is too narrow for the horse. How would you check the saddle is too narrow for the horse a little closer up? Any ideas? Yeah, you can tell when it's pressing, when it's tight in the shoulders. The one thing I would like to do, which you can see with this saddle, right, for those of you that can see or come a bit closer to me, you'll be able to see, is there's your tree point in the saddle. That, if you then think of the line from here, you can probably see better in this corner here. That tree point isn't running parallel to the horse. It's running into the horse. Whereas actually what it should be doing is going round the horse. So there's your tree point. Come here, because he won't bite you. Or eat you. Come on. All of you. That tree point is sticking down into the horse. And that's where it is. That's your tree point pocket. And if you look at him from the front, here, that is, to me, that's sticking in him and going that way, not round it.
You can see that, you can actually see that. I can't see that. You can see it.
Yeah.
God, yeah, move round, so I couldn't see that. I don't see it.
You'll need to be round that corner, basically, or still here. it had a real checkered career, and it had all sorts of lameness issues. And that, of course, was where the back was coming. The back wasn't causing it, but the back was secondary to its little issues that were going on. Okay? Right, any questions on that?
I've got one.
Go on.
My friend has a horse and she struggles to find one because the back of the saddle tends to, you get a bit of a gap
Right.
when it's sat on it.
Yes.
And she's quite a big girl, so when you get one that it looks like it fits at the front and it sits on it,
Yeah.
it doesn't press down. Why does it like come up at the back then?
Right, it's when the saddle very often is too wide, or the panel isn't the right shape. Right, what do I mean about the panel? The panel is this bit underneath, okay? Now the way I've designed my panels, it took me a long time as a saddle designer to work this out, I have to say, because everybody claps on about the tree needs to be the right shape for the horse. Yes, to a point. I don't like what I call banana trees, which are very U-shaped. We try and pick something that is reasonably flat in the middle, but something that we can actually then give you some depth over, because as a rider, most riders want some depth, okay? But what I then worked out is that if it'd be interesting to know if that saddle had got front gussets in it.
It's just a Winchester tree changeable bullet, sorry.
It may be the fact she's got it too wide. The other thing that I would do is I would actually girth it back two straps rather than middle.
See, the back lady told me to put like gamsey under it, and the back bit, that goes out, and that's what she's got.
Well, that will certainly support it, but it's a matter of whether it's falling down into a hole this way. The other thing to consider is the girthing, because I've got a horse of my own who actually has a very wide rib cage here, but he narrows up through here. And in normal everyday work, the saddle is fine until I do extended trot. And because as the scapula goes forward, that then leaves me a big hole here, the saddle then drops into the hole and then sits back again. It's not good when you're a saddle sitter and you're seen doing extended trot and things like that. And what we've actually done with that, we've put an H girth on it. Have you seen an H girth? Right, I'll show you an H girth. I'll pull out a couple more saddles and I'll show you an H girth, and then we're probably going to have to call it a day. But let's keep asking some questions. What the H girth does, it girths the saddle here and it girths the saddle here, and it's got a plate in the middle. So what it actually does is keep the saddle absolutely anchored. So again, girthing is something else to look at. If you're only girthing it through to a girth here, it does then pull it forward and it doesn't actually keep it properly anchored. If I girth a jump saddle, all my saddles come with 4 girth straps on. So what we would actually do, and they come off the tree in here, look. So you've got one right by the point, which you can't actually see. You've then got one there, and one there. And then what I would actually do for a jump saddle, I girth it on the back too. Because what that then does is pulls the saddle down at the back, keeps it stable, but allows the horse room to move in the shoulders. With a dressage saddle, we tend to go front and back, which keeps the saddle absolutely anchored down on the horse's back, because it's being used for a different thing. Jump saddles notoriously go backwards, dressage saddles notoriously go forwards. And I think that's a little bit to do with the design of the panel. Our new jump saddle, we're actually designing the panel underneath it a bit more like a dressage panel, but putting the flap over the top to give room for the rider's knee, etc. That's something else we're doing quite a lot of. Okay? Right, let me find you an H girth whilst I remember.